Hey guys, Ryan DeMent from Chasing Happiness podcast. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. Today on the podcast, we have Kelly Swanson, and this is going to be a spicy conversation. I think she's going to bring some fire to the actual podcast. She's an award winning storyteller, comedian, and strategic story coach. Kelly, welcome to the show.
Great. Thanks, Ryan, with a build up like that. How'd you like to walk into work and go, Kelly's going to be spicy today? No pressure there.
Guess what? There is no pressure on this show. We just have conversations. We're human beings and we've got a lot to talk about. So let's get
Wait,
right
I
in.
got to say something already. I'm
Oh,
already interrupting you. I love
all
the
right.
name. I love the name of this Chasing Happiness. I love, love, love that. I'm a wordsmith. And what I love about it is something you have to chase. It is not something you wait to crawl up in your lap like your dog. It is something you have to chase. Hey, well done on the title of chase because so many of us wait, expect it to just everybody to give it to us, bring it to us, do it for us. So well done. I love you had me at hello just with the title of your podcast.
Amen. That instant gratification, but we could even go deeper on the happiness, but let's not go there quite yet.
Yeah.
Little bit about you. The audience wants to know about you because they can already hear you're spicy. So
Oh
tell
my
us
God,
about
nothing
you.
about me is little. You don't ask a speaker to share something little about him or a storyteller. We'll be here all day. But I'll try. Okay. My life in a nutshell. Bum. As you can tell from my accent, I'm from Jersey. That
You're funny.
I know. Pause for laughter. No, I'm from the South, from Georgia originally. Still got people down there. In Smyrna, Atlanta, Marietta, Cell Block D. You got to write him. And then shaved them all and I moved up north to North Carolina. So apparently I'm a northerner now that I live in North Carolina. But shy kid, believe it or not, Spicy Kelly. Yeah, I was the picked on kid. If you looked at me, I turned beet red. And I don't say it for sympathy. It just is what it is. We all have our
Mm.
backstory. We all have our baggage. Nobody had the perfect life. I talk about fairy tales and princesses and realize that nobody really was the princess or the prince, that everybody got some sort of a raw deal somewhere along the way. But anyway, so shy, picked on kid. If you looked at me, I turned beet red. I spent most of my life trying to be invisible, trying not to be noticed. Maybe some of y'all listening know the feeling, be seen and not heard, blah, blah, blah. I retreated. Stories were my thing. Books were my thing and writing. It was therapeutic. I created a whole town and all these characters, and they would talk to me and they would tumble out of my head and land on the paper. And they made me laugh and they were silly and they were ordinary people who just did beautiful things. I didn't know how I wrote them. I don't know. It was weird. I had this whole imaginary town. And now as an adult, when I look back, I'm like, whoa, that's weird. However, when I look back as an adult, I say, no, Kelly, that's not weird. Everybody does that. Everybody writes the story that they live in. Maybe not the same way you do, but now that I look at my life, which is I had no clue that this would become my job, my profession, my art, that I would have a theater
Mm.
show for God's sake. I never knew people would want to listen to these stories, that they would care. In fact, I buried them for about 20 years because I thought it was too weird. Self-esteem was an issue. You name it, I got it. And all of a sudden I turned into this motivational speaker, but now it makes sense, hindsight, because we all write the story that we live in. Reality is, gosh, I'm having a hard time thanks to social media, even understanding anymore what's real anymore.
Yeah.
It's everybody's got a microphone, everybody has a narrative. I read this about one thing and then somebody else says the complete opposite. And I'm like, wow, we really do write the reality that we live in. And that could be a really cool thing unless the stories are hurting us, which I've had a lot of those in my life too. So there you go. That's long-winded. And now I'm living the dream or the low budget version of it anyway, telling stories, making people laugh, making them feel good. And it just happened, Ryan, that I was good at helping other people find their voice and tell their story. And because people would just come and say, how do I tell mine? And get the courage to see what they'd do if they were brave and change their story. So there you go. That's the speed version. How'd I do? 3 minutes, 4 minutes? That's not bad.
About 5 minutes, but
Okay.
who's counting?
You
So
are apparently
I just look up and see what's going on. It is what it
is
is.
what it
But
is.
you said some great things in there, and we can start going down some rabbit holes. Is that social media is really create is a double-edged sword. It's created the ability to get your message out there to the world, but it also has created a reality that is truly fake in a lot of things that we see. how do you as a I would call you a motivational coach, and I think there's a lot more, and you're telling a story that it's your true story, and I think that's is even better. But how do we discern that, and how do we clean it up to where we can use social media to our benefit, but also realize that we don't wanna just be led down the path of falsehood?
Yeah, okay, that's a loaded question. That's a lot. And let me clarify.
Hey, let me back up. Did I say this show wouldn't be loaded? No. We're going I go down rabbit holes, that's why they're called rabbit holes.
And it's a great conversation, and we're not gonna fix it, we're not gonna solve it, and there's no easy answer to it because
Yeah.
it's a big thing. But you went right to the heart of what's plaguing a lot of us. But I do wanna clarify because I never want to wear a hat I don't deserve. Yes, I'm motivational and but yeah, I'm not an expert and a life coach and a motivational coach. So I'm talking to you I am an expert on story. But I'm talking to you today, but I've been given that role. You're right. People hire me to cheer them up and to help. I'm just working through it myself and I happen to do it in front of an audience. So I want everybody listening, because some of your people listening may be an expert, that I'm just going to talk as one person to another, but you open up social media and I'm gullible. You give me a conspiracy theory and I'm all over it. But especially when some of them start coming true. And now I'm really confused in my head. But it does present a false reality. We open up social media and we see how the whole world is living. And some of us get very jealous because when we open up that world with all our friends, they all look skinny, they all look happy, they're all wearing clean sweaters and matching sweaters, their kids aren't fighting, and we get jealous and we feel less than because we feel like our life sucks. Look how clean their house is. And it just brings out every insecurity in us. And yet it's not the fault of the person posting. Why should they be? It's on us. It's on me. I have to look at it and go, Kelly, this is not that. This is you. What's up with that? But so you've got that issue, which is plaguing our children right now and our teens who have been
Oh, yeah.
indoctrinated to stay on this platform and never get off. That's a whole other conversation in and of itself. But just for my own sake, I open it up. The first thing I try not to do is feel jealous of somebody else's life, of the way they look, of what they have that I think I don't have, of their job. Oh, they got that job. I didn't get that job. I don't even think about the fact, or this is what I try to remind myself, that somebody's looking at me and that my picture is what they wish they had. So while I'm over there looking at look at how great her family looks, or she's so skinny, my other friend over here is going, oh, look, she's got legs and I don't. And no, that's just we all keep saying, be grateful. I'm so sick of seeing that. I want to punch people in the face. If I see one more me or challenge to be grateful, yet I guess that's probably exactly what I'm saying is, so the
Yeah.
first piece is just jealousy is your life looks pretty through this window frame that you've given me to peek into your house. And then I have to realize we all know this. When you get a look inside that house, everybody has a story that will break your heart. I believe that. Everybody, and actually a friend of mine, Linda Larson, another speaker, actually said it to me. She said, everybody's got a story that'll break your heart. And that stuck with me. And if you think of that, everybody's got their own problems, their own issues, and that world that looks so beautiful to you, to them, it might not be just because they have stuff or just because they've got their own issues. And it may turn out that what you've got is, or what I have is really cool and neat. I also have to look at, they've got this. I could have that, but am I willing to do what it takes to get it? And then I have to go, no, you're not. Put down the fried chicken. If you're not willing to do what you need to do to get where that person is. And I've also had to learn, Ryan, to celebrate them, to good for you,
Amen.
to be happy for others, to celebrate their victories, to know that it's their turn, that it's not my turn, and to be mindful that when I'm celebrating my victory, somebody else is having a hard time, or I've had to recently go through a death in the family. It's my dad died last month.
Sorry to
And
hear that.
thank you. It's really, oh, they're going to say so dumb, but man, grief sucks. It's hard. I mean, it's so many things and you go through it alone. But it's really made me in tune. And I promise I'll stop talking after this and let you get away in edgewise. It's really made me in tune to the fact that every moment I go into Even bringing my grief or, "Oh, look what happened to me," bad in that moment. There's somebody sitting there who just went through it themselves or is going through it. It's just made me really in tune with the fact that we are all going through something, all the time and whatever. Yeah, okay, where do you wanna go with that?
Oh, I got plenty of places, but let me unpack it a little bit and let's back up again. As you talked about, we're putting an image out on social media and we're portraying it as one thing, but then once we peel the layer of the onion back, we see that these individuals have a story to tell that could potentially break your heart. I want to back that up just a little bit further and put that truck in reverse and just stop right here. Do you think with social media that we're out chasing these? I guess the best way to say it is I'm going to back it up and use my analogy. We're out chasing the Joneses. The Joneses are broke. And all they're looking for is that external gratification, and we're not truly healing ourselves on the inside, like grief would be one thing. What do people do when they go through grief? They typically do something on the external side, eat, spend, do things that you're not supposed to do in normal life. Do you think that's part of that story that we need to put out there to share with others so that everyone knows that? And this is the connection piece where, like for grief, we all go through grief in some way, form, shape. We're all going to unfortunately pass away from this earth and go on. But we don't actually talk about it and try to connect with one another, even though we say we do. You don't see a lot of reaching across and saying, "Hey, I'm here for you," type of a thing.
You're right, and I'll be the first to cast that stone at myself because through the death I've just experienced, I saw community. And I looked and I saw, for example, my sister lives here. It was local. So a lot of that community was local, but and I saw the result. They were coming because of what she has poured into them. They were coming to pour back into her. And not so much even for my dad, but they were there for her. And I went, "Oh my gosh, I want that." And then I said, "Then Kelly, you better be willing to pour into people because they're coming because she's invested in them." And I'm an introvert. I have lead a very extroverted life, but I'm an introvert. So I'm constantly surrounded by people who want to hug and talk, and it is just too much. But so I've been very closed off to people. And the lesson I've learned recently with that, which I think is what you're talking about, is that we can build our own the family's the family we got, but we can build our own community. And we have to invest in people. I've got to get out of my comfort zone and go have a meetup with somebody on Zoom or go, even though if I'm tired, go have lunch with somebody or notice now when so and I can't do it. The hard part for me is there's just too many of them and I can't do it for everybody for the number that reach out to me because I've got such a public persona. But I've made it a goal for 2024 to say yes and not bubble myself off and to be more to say yes to friendships, to say
Mhm.
yes to relationships. And it's risky because you get hurt that way, or people may not live up to what, or you're tired or you're lazy, or like me, I'm an introvert. I just don't want to leave my house. I'm home. I want to be with my family. But I'm like, no, Kelly, if you want a community that pours into you, especially the older I get, I think you need to go pour into people and you need to be and you're going to notice now. I called one of my friends and I said, "I am sorry that when your dad died, I wasn't there more for you." She's, "What are you talking about? You said a dinner, you did it." And I said, "Yeah, but I didn't get it. Now that I'm in the club, I get it. And maybe that's just how life works. And now we become more intentional. Now I'm gonna when somebody's going through it. And I had that. I had some people who were almost strangers who reached out and just did something a little above and beyond when my dad died, and that felt really good. And I also wanted to say, tap onto what you were saying just because it's in my head. Of course, on social media, I am not gonna get out of bed, scratch my butt, and with film on my teeth and take a picture and share it with you. I'm gonna put my church face on when I go, or I'm gonna put my face on and my hair in if I'm gonna go out to the world. It's a social platform. If you're gonna walk into a wedding or you're gonna come with your best manners. So let's don't beat people up too much that they're not coming onto social media naked. However, there is a space. when we can be, I'm not super vulnerable on social media just because there's I just feel very private. But when I open up and say, hey, my dad died, and I put his obituary up, Ryan, I don't normally wouldn't do that. It's the last thing is why would I tell all these people and these strangers, but the
Mhm.
outpouring of love, I was like, wow, it's like getting a dog. I was like, oh my God, if I'd known how much I was going to love a dog and let a dog love me, I would have done this a lot sooner. I'm
You've
rambling all
called
over the place.
No, that's why we do this podcast. It's the beautiful thing. It goes where it goes. So one thing I gotta back up. I'm a little different than you. I'm extroverted. Am I an introvert at times? Of course, everybody can. I don't share on social media unless I want the world to know, and I share very few personal things other than my dog Moose and
Yeah.
maybe something that's going on around my house or whatever, but my family is off limits. I get all that. I think where I'm hearing you and maybe I'm listening and hearing you, you have community and tribe already. You just wanna be able to harness it and be able to connect with them in a way that works for you and for them. And I can tell you from doing podcasts and also the different things I do in business, tribe is something huge for me, and it's a calling because I deal with it on a daily basis. So we're in the affordable housing space. I unfortunately, I shouldn't say unfortunately. It is unfortunate and fortunate. I probably deal with the most jaded individuals when it comes to buying a home. They're first time home buyers. They've been told no for most of their life. They're lifelong renters. They've got credit challenges. All strikes against them. And the one thing I tell them, how bad do you want it? If you want it bad enough, I will help you. But the challenge is you have to do the work. I can't change your credit. I can't change your financial situation. I can support you. I can be your cheerleader. I can hold you accountable. I can be in your corner when the crap hits the fan. But at the end of the day, you've got to do the work. And that's the translation of life for me. If you're not willing to put the time and effort into your work to make the change, no one else can. And you can look at social media and everywhere else to really find inspiration. But until you take that first step and really move forward, fear is always going to be in your vocabulary, and fear shouldn't be in your vocabulary. It should be, I'm going to actually kick it in the teeth and move forward. And I know it's easier said than done. Believe me, I
But
get
it
it.
doesn't change the truth.
It
It
doesn't
doesn't
change the
change
truth.
the
No,
truth,
no, no, no.
and you're exactly right, Ryan, because that is why I said I like the chasing happiness. You don't wait for happiness to get in your lap. I can't wait for people to surround me and be my friends if I'm not willing to do it, and this is gonna sound awful. There's a lot of lonely people who think they have nobody, and my
Yeah.
philosophy is, you are alone because you chose to be. You can create community, but if you're not willing to do it too. That's what you were exactly right. You just said it much better is you are as alone as you choose to be. I just watched a good movie on Amazon called Last Christmas. And
Oh, I saw the previews for it. So it's good.
yeah, it was really cute. Like a romantic comedy Christmas. But the thing I loved about it, like this woman was absorbed with herself coming out of that and
Okay.
getting involved with the homeless. And it was just such a great example of how, now, of course, it's a movie, but still, of how her life became so much more beautiful when she invested in these homeless people. She now had a community to be envied
Hmm.
in the homeless community. I'm like, I'm not saying we all have to go there, but community, if mental, we have a lot of mental health issues right now. I sat in a business meeting recently and three people were talking about how depressed, how they've never felt depressed before, and they're completely just checked out. They're despondent. They don't care about anything. They don't know why they feel this way. And it was just, and I just think where there's one, there's many. And I'm not saying it's all man up, Nancy, get over it. No, that's not what I'm saying. 9 out of 10 of the issues aren't that way, but one piece of it is you got to understand your role in this and that
Hmm.
you can bring happiness into your life by looking outward. And I need to do more of that. I need to do more of fostering community. And you don't, the Facebook, the social media, that's the church face.
Oh yeah.
I don't know why I say church face. We all go with our good, not anymore, but
It's okay. It's true. I get the analogy and I love
yeah.
it.
Yeah. So it's, we're looking, and we've got a generation coming up. We're measuring based on likes and who's commented
2
and
generations.
selfie. 2
Yeah,
generations.
2
Selfies.
generations are stuck in this.
Yeah, and it's a how do we it always comes down to defining your worth, owning your worth. It's not that's what the keeping up with the Joneses is
Yeah.
all about. It's when I'm jealous of somebody else, that like their success in business, for example. Speakers can be guilty of having pretty big egos or
Oh, yeah.
entertainers and whatnot. And it's if somebody else is funny, then suddenly that threatens everything we're all about. And so, luckily, I don't and it's hard too because when you don't have it, it makes it even worse. When you're climbing, when you're struggling, when you're hungry, it makes it a lot worse when somebody else has food. But anyway, but I would look around and I go, "Oh, how did they get that opportunity? Why didn't they get?" And I finally thought, "Kelly, you are a horrible person. You are just really, gosh, what is wrong with you? What's going on here? Why are you feeling upset?" And I went, "Oh, because when they get it, I feel like something's wrong with me." That's really what the root of it was for me, is something must be wrong with me then. And there's where you gotta really understand where your baggage is. It's the self-esteem, "I'm not worth it, I don't deserve, and I'm letting myself be triggered." This is about turn that mirror back on me. This is about me and what I'm going through. And we can often look at whenever we have an emotion, it's negative, it's hateful, it's just bad. We can look back at us and go, okay, where's this coming from? What is it about you that you need to work on? Whatever. I don't know. I talked myself
And
into a hole. Again, this isn't my area of
no, no, no,
expertise.
no.
This
No,
is just
no,
how
no.
I see the world.
But that's perfect. That's how it should be. You said a lot of things there, and I agree with all of them, but you backed yourself in, I don't think a wall. I think you backed yourself into where you're at because in hindsight, you know what you need to do. You just haven't executed on it yet. And it sounds like you're getting closer. And let me be the first to say, if you haven't done this, if you're putting a community together and I'm invited, if you'll invite me, I'll show up. I have no problem. I probably belong to 6 or 8 different communities from guests that I've had on just to help them get their community off the ground. I love that type of stuff. If that's out there, I'll join. I'll help out whatever I can do because for me, life is about really helping others. And that's where I get the joy and gratification. When we sell a home to a family, every single time, if I'm on camera, I cry. It just happens because this family, I've seen their journey from renting, being broke, not understanding financial literacy to where now they're a homeowner. They've got money in the bank, they're saving, they're financially educated, and they can do so much more with their lives and now pass that on to their kids. That's generational for me, which is a huge impact. We have a goal through our nonprofit to impact 100,000 families and just one family at a time, man. And that's what we do. And it's
And you step into their story, which is beautiful, and you help them reframe it and change their story. You're part of
yes,
that process for them, that these stories that you've been writing, it says you can't do this, you should always rent, you don't deserve a home, whatever, you're helping them
yeah.
rewrite that story. That's a beautiful thing. That's a
But
beautiful
one thing that I've learned in this process, I'm A-type personality. My hair's on fire. I typically work 12, 14 hours a day. People are not wired like me. So when I would first start connecting with these individuals and these families, I would go down a rabbit hole, a dark hole with them, and I would lose all sense of purpose because I was so invested. I can tell you today, after interviewing hundreds of families, within 5 minutes, I can tell you if someone's gonna do the work or not. And in that 5 minutes, I will just be very brief and short with them and tell them, "Hey, I don't think you're ready, 1. 2, when you're ready, I'm here." Because you're basically telling me you're not in this game to change, and I respect that, but I also have to be available to others that are, and I get some reactions that are not so hot, but then some people are like, "You're right. I need to sit down and figure out what to do." But we also have resources now before we did not. I can refer them out to counselors. I can refer them out to people that they can join groups, that they can start getting some motivation and some inspiration to change their lives. I didn't have that before through our nonprofits. That's just another aspect of life that I look at is like the more tools I can provide, the more I can give out. And
I
it's
wanna say
just,
something on that, Ryan.
yeah.
My father was a self-made man. I guess that's the right phrase. Came
Mhm.
from nothing. He had a mentor in his life who taught him about money and wealth and building it. And you're not going to meet somebody who worked harder. Like your sign back behind you says, good things come to those who hustle, because that's
Yeah.
what you're talking about. I thought it said those who whistle. And I'm like, I hate whistling, but because I can't see. But he was a hustler. And in talking, so near the end of his life, there were a lot of conversations about the wealth he built and the company he created and all of that. And somebody had asked him something, it came out in our conversation about those who get there and those who don't, or the people that we know that didn't, that came from the same humble beginnings and didn't do something. And he had said, and it was a beautiful, I hope I get it right because it's a beautiful way that he says it. He says, the difference in those who get out and those who don't is, are they teachable?
Hmm,
And he
I
says,
like
you
that.
can find out. It's the same thing you just said. It's just a different
Yeah.
way. You can find out in minutes if
Mhm.
someone is teachable. Because if they're not teachable, and he would say that about sports. He was very big. Sports was his way out, another way out of his world, a way to a different life. But he would say the same thing about sports. He'd say it in business. He'd say, if you are not teachable. And so I'm trying to take on that mantle as well. It's the same thing. Hustling is about being teachable. There are resources, people who know, but if you dig your heels in and you will not be taught, then you got a problem, which is what you're saying. It's great.
It's also a humbling experience in life. And the only way I know to describe it is I failed at entrepreneurship twice. I'm on my 3rd round. I joke about it that corporate America never taught me how to be a fisherman and be able to make sure that I could put food on the table because I got a paycheck every 2 weeks, a fat bonus at the end of the year, and stock options. It
Yeah.
really didn't teach me how to be a fisherman. And I would tell you those 2 failures are probably the most humbling parts of my life, but there's more to be told in that. But what I can take away from that is if you're willing to, like you say, put the time and effort in, hustle and learn, be teachable, you will win over a period of time. The only other thing that I could add to that, and I don't know if you're spiritual, religious, whatever, but there is a God, and people don't think that nowadays, but there is God. But man, when you're giving back and helping others, I think that's the biggest piece that really escalates everything in our lives is helping others when you truly can do and make a difference in someone else's life is life changing.
And you opened the door.
And
2 things I'll say. One, I wanna back up and say one thing too, it's about getting back up. I've made so many mistakes. People look at my business in our industry and see me as a success, and they don't realize how many mistakes I continue to make. I still don't know what I'm doing, but I get back up. And I do it again,
love it.
and I get back up, and I get back up, and I get back up no matter how many times I'm punched. Yeah, that's also what the hustle about is. You made a mistake, learn from it. You nothing is wasted in this world. And then the second is I am a believer. I do believe there's something bigger, and I believe that we will always be empty in our we will always have a hole inside of us, until I'm not gonna say this in the right way, that I believe that God is the source of our worth and that we have that hole until that he fills that hole, that we can never measure ourselves by others, who gets to decide. Let me say this in a better way. I do not look around to see who I am. I look up.
Yeah.
And that's
Eh,
not the point you
Very
made, but we are all struggling to find our worth. I love that line in the Christmas. I think it's silent. Then he appeared and the soul felt its worth. How do you say that to others who are like, but Kelly, I don't believe the way, that you believe in whatever. But what you said is true. When you focus outward, when you serve, I read a quote, was it Anne Frank or somebody who said, giving away never made anybody poor. And I was like, oh, that is true. And then I was like, yes, if you give away all your money, you are poor, but you aren't poor because there's always a richness in giving away. And anyway, I agree with that wholeheartedly, no matter where you stand in terms of faith.
But I think and we'll get close to wrapping this up, but I think that's where part of the struggle these 2 generations coming up is they don't believe there's a God, and they don't believe that there's anything bigger than them. It's all focused around them, and it's self-centered, and that is a challenge in itself, and I'm not asking anybody to be religious or anything to that extent. You just have to realize there's more than just you that exists, and you didn't come to this planet or were born by mistake, one or two, you didn't create it. And I think that's where I struggle with it is I have nephews that are in those demographics and those groups, and they think that one, there's not a God, but they also think that there's Vikings. And this is just a recent conversation I had, and I'm still trying to digest it. But really quick, is the Viking gods are in control, and I'm like, where the hell did you come up with that?
Because everything is a story. Everything outside of that is a story somebody makes up. When truth becomes relative, we've got a problem. And I hate to leave on such a depressing note or even get to one, but truth is relative now. When you can't even decide, society has to decide murder's right, murder's wrong.
Yeah.
That's muddy now. It's a scary place when truth becomes relative to everybody because you have to have some sort of a universal standard by which we all live by. And yeah, it's yes, we have that generation that's very focused on self and they're seeking their purpose.
Mhm.
What is their purpose? What is their worth? And they had a pandemic where they were all locked down and isolated
Oh,
and they're getting their connection on social media.
it's a
But
mess.
it comes back down to our families.
Yes.
It is not hopeless and it's not, there is good in the world. There are good people.
Mhm.
There are good things being done. And that's something where I'm going to say, wait, let's look at who's got the microphone because there are plenty of beautiful things that are happening around us in this world all of the time. It's just that we're not shown those. So maybe we can all play a part in, hey, let's start sharing the beautiful stories that are going on in this world. Let's stop giving the microphone. Your social media puts you in here and then gives the microphone. They just they decide what you're going to see. A lot of people are taking breaks from social media. I probably totally would if I didn't need it for my business because it is also a beautiful way of getting connected and having conversations and being real. I wouldn't have met you if it
Yeah.
hadn't been for social media. So I don't want to poo-poo it
Oh, I
either.
agree. I agree. It's a double-edged sword, and you have to find a way to manage it effectively, and I'm with you. I wouldn't be able to get our message out with our social media and our real estate investing and everything else we do. I get that. But also at the same time, I'm very careful when I'm on there. I'm focused on business and making sure I'm engaged in that. Believe me, I go down rabbit holes too, just like everyone else. When I see something, I'm like, is that real or is that fake? And then you start having to research, and I'm like, whoa, stop. You gotta
Yeah.
get away from it. It's hard. I get it.
You don't know if you can trust the source. I don't even trust
Correct.
scientists anymore. Now I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't trust politicians. I don't trust scientists. We've also got an issue, a trust issue going on. I hate to paint such a gloomy picture, but as others would say, shoot, look back in history. We've been through plenty of dark times in our history when it was probably looked much worse than this. We'll be fine. But your podcast, Chasing Happiness, yeah, I think it is what a lot of people are doing right now. They've lost sight of it. They've lost, and I think the one thing that's come out of the consistent thread that's come out of this conversation today is it's an inside job.
Mhm.
Happiness is an ins oh, there's a quote coming here. We gotta
Oh,
get
there we go.
happiness is an inside job that starts on the outside because it is.
Ooh,
We gotta write that down because it is,
it's
we
smart.
find it
It's
when we
smart.
look at others, when we look outwards. Happiness is an inside job that starts by looking out.
Yep.
That is what it is. Because I'll tell you, it's hard to see all that you don't have when you're focused on somebody else and helping make their life better. And I've given myself a pep talk. I know another thing I need to add to my list, and maybe everybody listening, let's add a challenge for 2024. The first one, and maybe everybody can make their own commitment and put it in comments or whatever. But my first one will be I will say yes to more relationships, not surface. I have thousands of surface friends, but yes, I will go have coffee with you and look you in the face and sit there and meet you. So yes to friendships, and I will reach out more to serve. I will find happiness by helping others find theirs.
That's awesome. That's great. That's a good way to wrap, but before we wrap, we didn't get into your storytelling, but
Another day we'll do that.
we can do that if you're not too busy for us.
Yeah,
Um,
I always say yes. See, I always say yes. But yeah, we could talk another day about the storytelling side of what I do.
so if people wanna connect with you professionally and maybe even join your community and so forth, where would they find you? Or where would you like
Well,
them to go?
you can go on social media and be another face lobbying. Or you could go on my social media channels. I'm on all of them, and it's easy to find me, and, be part of the masses. Or you can go to storyimpactnetwork.com,
Okay.
which is a platform. It's actually Mighty Networks for those of you who are familiar with that platform. It's a platform that I'm doing. I'm trying to bring people over there so that I could see all your posts and comment, and you can see what I have to say, and nobody's censoring it, and it's not covered up in ads, and nobody has to pay to play. And so it's called storyimpactnetwork.com. Yeah, you gotta fill out a profile, get over it, you'll be fine. But I'm trying to get away. I don't know if I'll ever be able to totally get away from social media, but it's my way to have my own community over there. Now we have a common theme over there, and we all love story. So it tends to be
Okay.
people that are fans of storytelling, but I'll take anybody over there. So thanks for asking, Ryan. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. We will put that in the show notes so people know where
Okay.
to connect with you. It has been a pleasure speaking with you, and I think pleasure is probably a little too low of a bar. I think it was a very enlightening, conversation. You came out of the shell a little bit. We got about back and forth a little bit, but you were open and honest, and you shared some great ideas for the listeners to be able to start moving forward in their pursuit of happiness. And I marked your quote for inside or internal happiness. I will make sure, you know what that is? That will be the name of this episode.
Yes.
I will take that
Yes.
and
Happiness. Yeah, that's great.
yes, I marked it in the recording, so I'll go back and I'll pull it out, and we'll make that as the, headline for this episode, so we'll put that out there.
I hope you'll have me back one day. I'm sorry I wasn't sassy or spicy.
You
We'll
are
go there
spicy
another
and
day.
sassy. Yes, you were, and we had, some great healthy conversations, but we also had some great moments to where you opened up and people got to see another side of you.
Yeah, and that's important. I believe that everything is a divine appointment, and I believe we talked about exactly what should have been talked about today. And next time, we'll talk about exactly what should be talked about next time. But it's a joy. Thank you for having me on your podcast, and I really commend the work that you're doing in your professional life with affordable housing, and you really are helping people make their dreams come true because there's nothing like your first house.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful. But thank you for what you're doing on this podcast too. There are a lot of people out there that need to find their way back to happy again. And so you're putting a lot of good into the world. Thank you for that.
Thank you. That means a lot. Thank you for coming on.
Sure. Bye.